Welcome to the Lovestead.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica and today I'm sharing with you my 2021 BookTube Prize ratings. I'm in a different spot than I usually do these kinds of videos because my dog is sitting in the spot where I usually sit. He looks so comfortable, I just don't have the heart to move him. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the BookTube Prize is an annual prize. It gives an award to a work of fiction and a work of nonfiction. And the judges are comprised of booktubers. So I believe we had around 200 judges this year, and I was a judge for fiction. I read the final round of fiction, and I wanted to share with you my thoughts on those final picks. So I'm going to start out just talking about the books in the order that I read them and share with you what I rated them. First, I read Chuggy Bane by Douglas Stuart. This is a book about Ange, and she is an alcoholic. It's really a story about her life, and she has a son named Shuggie, and I mean, it's a lot of trigger warnings for various kinds of abuse, neglect, addiction, other issues. The book is set in Scotland, and it's pretty long. It's around 500 pages, I believe. I listened to it on audiobook, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars out of 5 because to me it reminded me a lot of Frank McCourt's Angela's Ashes. Basically, in my opinion, misery porn. There's just misery from start to finish. And while it is well written misery, I tend to like books that have a little bit more depth, especially around the characters. And one of the things that I didn't love about Chuggy Bane was that you don't really get to know the characters outside of their pain. You only see them in pain. You only see them through their suffering. You don't really get to see them in their joy. And to me, it felt like that was a very incomplete way to represent a character, especially when you're following a character throughout a lifespan like this book did. The next book that I read was The Prettiest Star by Carter Sickles. This is about a man who has AIDS in the 1990s, and he goes back to his hometown in Ohio. It's like a small rural hometown to die. And he basically has to go through the struggle of the small hometown, people in this small town, finding out that he has AIDS and reacting really poorly to it. So people didn't like him in the swimming pool. Because remember in the 80s, early 90s, we didn't have a good understanding of AIDS and HIV. So there were a lot of misconceptions around how it was spread. And it was also a time period steeped in homophobia. And so it really covers a lot of that. And the book also does a really nice job of using different points of view to illustrate this family's process of taking care of their kid who is dying, and sort of that grieving process you tend to go through when you know a death is coming, but it hasn't happened quite yet. I really, really liked this book. I thought it was very well done. It was emotional in parts. I liked the characters. I felt attached to all the family members, especially his younger sister. And I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. Next, I read The Vanishing Half by Britt, Bennett. This is a story about 2 twin sisters who are very light-skinned black women, and they escape their hometown and go to, I believe they go to New Orleans first, and then they end up separating and on different coasts of the United States, and one sister decides to pass as a white woman. And so the story is kind of about that process. It's about the sisters trying to find a way to come back together. It's definitely kind of a family saga because it traces not only the twins' mom, but then the twins and then the twins' children and kind of their story arcs as well. There's good queer representation in this book. And overall, it was a good book. It was very well crafted, well done, but I did find it just a little bit boring. And I also found some of like the symbolism and some of the analogies to be a bit heavy-handed. So I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. Next, I read The Death of Vivc OG by Akwaeke Emezi. And this is a book about a young man who lives in, I believe it's Nigeria, and he is gay, and he goes through that process of coming out in a society that really deeply homophobic, to the point where, you know, they'll burn a person at the stake basically if they come out as gay or queer in any way. And his cousin is also struggling with his sexuality and his identity in similar ways. So it's really about these two men, you know, finding themselves. And you know, early on in the book that Vivek is going to die. And so it's kind of a lead up to that. And then there's like dual timelines as well, where it'll flash forward to sharing about how, you know, the father dealt with the grief of losing his son when he did. And so it's quite complex. It's very rich. There's some taboo elements in there. But I thought that this was really well done, and I definitely want to read more of Akwaeke Emeze's writing. It really was absorbing, and I found myself quite in love with all of the characters because Akwaeke Emezi did such a good job of letting us in on the humanness of these characters and all of their complexity. So you really feel like these characters are each actual people who you're really knowing and loving. And it makes the book have like a very powerful impact. So I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. Next, I read My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is a story about a young girl who is abused by her teacher. So she goes to a fancy boarding school on the East Coast. It's set in Maine, and the main character is Vanessa, and the story basically takes you through the process of her being groomed and then abused by her English teacher. And there's another dual timeline in this story. One is set in 2017 during the height of the Me Too movement, where people were coming out and saying that, hey, this person abused me when I was a kid. And so in that timeline, people are coming out and saying that this teacher had abused them, the same teacher that abuses Vanessa. And so they're trying to get Vanessa to come in and join them in this movement and try and, you know, say that, yes, he abused me too, but she really is just not wanting to do that. She's not wanting to put her life on display like that. And it's a really complex story about how that kind of grooming works, how it affects someone psychologically, how brainwashed someone in that situation can become, and how difficult it is to, you know, admit that you have been abused. Vanessa throughout the whole story is just very adverse to calling herself a victim in any way. And so a lot of this book is about her coming to terms with that, her facing the truth of the situation, and it's just so good. One of the best books that I've read in a very long time. I gave it 5 stars out of 5. And then the last book that I read was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This is about Shakespeare's son who dies of the plague, and it really should be called Agnes because it's more about Hamnet's mother than it is about Hamlet and her grieving process. And this book was really well done, but to me, I like to compare this to like a work of art. So like I might see a painting by Salvador Dali, and I can look at that painting and I can see all of the elements in the painting that make it a great piece of artwork. I can identify the impact that it had on the art world. I can identify the symbolism and the representation. I can understand why Salvador Dali is a genius for painting that painting. But the painting doesn't make me feel anything. That's how I felt about Hamnet. I could see all of the elements that made this book a work of art. I could see all of the elements that makes Maggie O'Farrell's writing genius. I could see all the pieces in there that made it, you know, a really well done book of its time. But it didn't make me feel anything. And it makes me feel terrible to say that, because so many people that I know read this and they're like, oh, I cried so hard, or oh, it got me so upset. And like, I just didn't get that when I read it. So I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. Once you read the books for the BookTube Prize, you go in and rank the books from best to worst. So my rankings for the books that I read were coming in at, hang on, how many were there? 6 of them. So in 6th place for me was Hamnet. In 5th place, Chuggy Bane. In 4th place, The Vanishing Half. In 3rd place, The Prettiest Star. In 2nd place, The Death of Vivc OG. And in 1st place, my Dark Vanessa. So 1st place means it was the best. That was my ranking. Now, when they released the results of the BookTube Prize winners, I don't know if I should be shocked by this or what I should make of this, but they did release the top 3. And so according to the BookTube Prize and the rest of the judges, in 3rd place was The Prettiest Star by Sickles, which I agree with. That's where I had placed that one as well, and I was really happy to see it get into the top 3. In 2nd place was Chuggy Bane, which I had rated 5th. And in 1st place was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which I had rated 6th. So, I apparently felt the exact opposite of most readers for the BookTube Prize this year. So, you know, bear that in mind if you choose to go into reading these books. But that's just my honest opinion. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these, what you thought, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think I'm a sociopath for not feeling anything when I read Hamlet. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. And if you just want to let me know you're here and check in, you can leave a stack of books emoji. And I think I'm going to read for the BookTube Prize again in 2022. I haven't decided yet, but I need to decide soon because they did release the call for judges for the next year. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check out the BookTube Prize page. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!